My name's Imogen, I'm 19 years old and I'm currently on a gap year. However, this wasn't always the plan. This time last year, I was applying to university just like all of my friends, apart from with one small difference. I wanted to go to university in the Netherlands. There are a few reasons behind this, and today I'm going to talk to you about some of those. The main factor that affects where you go to university is money. And this was the thing that first prompted me to look at the Netherlands. University in the UK is quite expensive. I think a lot of us would agree on that. You will be paying £9,250 as a home student for each of your 3 years. So in total, you are paying almost £28,000 for your degree. However, in the Netherlands, university is nowhere near as expensive. In the Netherlands, you will pay £1,042 for your first year at university, and then for your second and third year, it will be €1,083, which means in total, your degree ends up costing just over €5,000. I'd just like to point out that these are based on the 2019 to 2020 fees, and that these could change in subsequent years. Obviously, Brexit isn't top of the agenda at the moment, but certainly when I was applying it was, and there was a lot of uncertainty around whether fees for UK students coming to EU universities were going to stay the same. There was no guarantee that they were, and the university weren't able to put out a statement about that. However, I do believe that the university have now confirmed that if you're starting in September this year, your fees will remain the same for all 3 years. I'm not 100%, so do definitely check that out if you're thinking of going this September. The second most important factor that influenced me in deciding that I wanted to apply to university in the Netherlands was the location, the fact that you'll get an international university experience. Although in the UK a lot of our universities are very international in terms of the students, it's not the same as moving abroad and studying in a completely different country. Specifically with where I was looking at, my favourite university in the Netherlands that I'd applied to was Leiden University in The Hague, and the whole idea of studying and living in The Hague just seemed really appealing to me, particularly because of the number of important institutions that were there, such as the International Courts of Justice and the Dutch Parliament building. I also love The Hague more generally as a city. It's quite similar to the size of the city that I live in now, and you can also reach Amsterdam in under an hour on the train, so that was definitely a pro for me. However, I guess the one con that I can think of if I had to pick one would be the fact that when we visited in August 2018, we went over and there was a really nice buzz about the place in the evening, but in the morning it just seemed quite dead and there weren't many people around. Obviously linked to location is the ease of getting there, the transport links, etc, etc. And certainly when you're looking at university abroad, this is a particularly important consideration. I'm really lucky with where I live in the UK that I only live about half an hour away from 2 different airports that fly out to Amsterdam. If you're clever with when you book the tickets, you can fly out for about £18 one way, which is obviously really reasonably priced. To me, the way I thought about it was the fact that it would be quite comparable to going to university up in Scotland. One of my options for UK universities was Edinburgh University, and I probably would have flown back from there as well when I came home, just because it works out cheaper as long as you book in advance. Obviously, when you're working with flights, it's not quite as simple as trains where you just book your ticket and you go. So it would require a little bit of forward planning, and I guess that's kind of a downside. Also, it's worth pointing out that when I was applying for university, this was last year, so air travel wasn't as restricted as it is now, and even if restrictions for coronavirus are lifted, air travel, particularly international air travel, is probably going to be one of the last things that is lifted, and that's obviously like a key consideration, particularly if you're considering going to university in the Netherlands in September. And you might be sitting there thinking, hey Imogen, everything you've said so far sounds pretty good, but where do these universities rank? Because for a lot of people, university rankings are really important in deciding where to study. The first of the universities that I applied to in the Netherlands was Amsterdam University, or UvA as it's known as for short, and that ranked 62nd in the world. The second university I applied for was Leiden University, and that ranked 67th in the world. And for both of those courses, the entry requirements were CCC, and that is the standard entry requirement. Although for Leiden, there is a selection process that you have to go through, and I explain more about that in my next video. So if you haven't already, click that subscribe button down below and turn on the bell notification so that you are notified when I post a new video about that. Just a little fun fact for you, I guess. 7 out of 13 Dutch universities are actually ranked in the top 100 universities in the world. So Dutch universities generally rank quite highly. So over to the UK now. The universities that I applied for varied quite considerably, and specifically the courses were quite different. However, I'm not going to explain about those in this video because we're looking more at the universities generally and where they ranked, not just for my specific courses. First up is Edinburgh. Edinburgh is ranked 30th in the world on the university rankings, and I had an offer for my course of AAA. Second up is Manchester University. That is ranked 55th in the world, and I actually had a reduced offer, I think, for this course, but the offer I had was ABB. The third university I applied for in the UK was Warwick. That is ranked 77th in the world, and the entry requirements for my course were AAA at Warwick. I also applied to Bristol University. That is ranked 87th in the world, and again my entry requirements there were AAA. Finally, my backup option was Royal Holloway University. It's ranked about 250th in the world, and I had an unconditional offer for that, but I think the standard offer for my course is actually BBB at Royal Holloway. So as you can see, the rankings are quite comparable between the UK and the Dutch universities, and you might be wondering why on earth the entry requirements are so low for Dutch universities compared to the UK, and I'm going to explain the reason behind that later on, so keep watching to find out. One of the obvious pros of going to an international university is that you're immersed in a completely different culture, and also you're immersed in a completely different language. I knew that when I went over to the Netherlands, I'd want to learn Dutch because I didn't see the point in studying in a completely different country and not even making an effort to learn the language. However, I guess the con of this is that Dutch people have some of the best English in the world, and often you'll go somewhere and you'll try and speak Dutch, especially if you're learning, and they'll just flick into English because most Dutch people do speak a really high level of English. So that would mean that maybe for me, learning a language wouldn't necessarily be as easy as I thought it was in my head, and I wouldn't necessarily come back fluent as I would hope at the end of my 3 years at university. In terms of job prospect, obviously this isn't something that you consider as soon as you're looking at a university, and even though employers would love to see the fact that you've kind of pushed yourself out of your comfort zone, you've gone to a completely different place to do university, I think there's certainly a downside in terms of studying abroad for job prospects. When you graduate from a UK university, you're graded using the first 2-1, 2-2 kind of system, the UK system. However, when you go to an international university, particularly like the Netherlands, your accreditation might not be the same, and employers might not necessarily understand that when you apply for jobs. And that might result in your application being pushed to the bottom of the pile, which is obviously not your desirable outcome of studying abroad. The final factor that I weighed up when looking at whether to apply to the Netherlands or to the UK for university was accommodation. In the Netherlands, a lot of the rooms are enclosed studio flats, so you actually have your kitchen and your bathroom in your room. Also, on average, the rooms tend to be larger than those in the UK, so you could be looking at getting a room between 20 square metres or 35 square metres. Obviously, some of them are smaller and some of them are bigger, so that's just kind of a guide range. But in the UK, you'll be looking at about 8 square metres for your room. However, that doesn't include your kitchen or your bathroom often. However, the downsides of accommodation in the Netherlands is that it is notoriously difficult to find, and I will talk all about this in my next video. The other thing is that although not having shared spaces sounds lovely on the surface of it, you can clean and you can be responsible for your own space, it does mean that you remove that kind of social element of university. You're not going to walk into the kitchen in the morning, say hello to your flatmates, and you might go days on end without seeing anybody if you're not in uni. Additionally, another downside, particularly for international students, is the fact that in the Netherlands a lot of rooms come unfurnished, which means that you have to find your own bed, your own wardrobe, your own desk, and so you have to sort all of that out at the start of your 3-year degree, and you also have to sort it out at the end of your 3-year degree because you've got to get rid of all of that furniture before then coming back to your home country. Finally, if you're thinking of applying to Dutch universities, there are a few more differences that you'll definitely want to be aware of. Where in the UK we have 3 semesters, in the Netherlands they only have 2. However, these are much longer than what we're used to here. The semesters run for about 20 weeks, and the first one runs from the start of September all the way through to the end of January. This means that you actually only get 2 weeks off for Christmas, whereas in the UK you get about 4 weeks. Additionally, it means that the turnaround from results day is really quick because often you have freshers a week before you start university, and so that means you're starting university kind of a week or 2 weeks after you've had your results day in the UK, compared to for a UK university where you would have 6 weeks to get ready. Then the second semester runs from early February all the way through to late June. These long semesters are then broken up into periods, and at the end of every period you have important exams. So whereas in the UK we just have important exams in January and at the end of the year, you will have important exams about 5 or maybe 6 times a year when you go to a Dutch university. This leads on to my next point, which is that although the A-level grades for Dutch universities are quite low, your first year at university is actually treated like a probationary period. So there's more focus put on your first year at university than there are on your A-level grades. Therefore, if you fail your exams after first year, the university will not hesitate to ask you to leave. This means that Dutch universities often have quite high dropout rates. A final factor, which is not really important when deciding whether you want to go to a Dutch university or not for your bachelor's level, but is important for your master's, is the fact that 90% of Dutch students will go on to do a master's, compared to only about 22% of UK students. So that's all the pros and cons that I can think of for applying to a university in the Netherlands, and that's all for this video. I hope that if you didn't know anything about Dutch universities, this video has enlightened you a little bit. Or if you hadn't even thought about applying to a Dutch university, maybe this is now on your radar, who knows? If you have any questions about applying or you're thinking of applying, please leave me a comment down below and we can have a chat all about it. Otherwise, give this video a big thumbs up and hit that subscribe button down below, making sure that you turn on the bell notifications so that you are informed every time that I have posted a new video. I hope you have a lovely day whatever you're doing, and see you next time. Lovely new video filmed.